At 11:47 a.m. on May 29, 1943, Captain James Hartwell climbed into the cockpit of his B-7 at RAF Allenbury, watching the ground crew load the last belt of 50 caliber ammunition into the modified bomber's 17th gun position. 26 years old, 42 combat missions, 0 experience in what he was about to fly. The YB-40 weighed 4,000 pounds more than any flying fortress he'd ever touched. In the 3 months before May, the 8th Air Force had lost 173 B-17s over Europe. Without long-range fighter escorts, German interceptors massacred bomber formations on the return leg from targets deep in the Reich. Focke-Wulf 190s attacked from 12 o'clock high where B-17 nose guns couldn't track fast enough. Measurement 109s dove through formations, picking off stragglers who fell behind. Crews called it the gauntlet. Half didn't make 25 missions. The solution seemed obvious. If fighters couldn't escort bombers all the way to Germany and back, turn a bomber into a fighter. Army Air Force's engineers stripped everything from a B-7F that didn't shoot. Bombs gone. Bombardier Station converted to a twin 50 caliber chin turret. Second dorsal turret installed behind the radio room. Single waist guns replaced with twin mounts. Cheat guns added to the forward fuselage. Ammunition capacity tripled to 11,275 rounds. Additional armor plating welded to crew positions. 16 50 caliber machine guns on one aircraft. They called it the YB-40. The Flying Destroyer. Douglas Aircraft in Tulsa completed 12 conversions by March. The 92nd Bombardment Group at Allenbury received them in early May. Colonel William Reed selected 7 crews to fly the first combat test. Hartwell got aircraft 42 to 5,738. His crew called it Hedgehog. The weight made everything wrong. Standard B-7Fs climbed to 20,000 feet in 25 minutes. The YB-40 needed 48. The control yoke felt different, heavier. The aircraft commander who test-flown it at Wright Field told Hartwell the center of gravity sat wrong with all that ammunition behind the bomb bay. But the guns. Hartwell had never seen firepower like this on a bomber. The chin turret alone could shred a Focke-Wulf before it closed to firing range. Every approach vector covered, every angle of attack met with overlapping fields of fire. The mission brief was simple. Escort the main formation to Saint-Nazaire. Attack the submarine pens. 7 YB-40s positioned in the most vulnerable spots. Low squadron, trail element, anywhere German fighters loved to hunt. Hartwell started the engines at 1:25 p.m. All 4 Wright Cyclones ran smooth. The control tower cleared them for takeoff at 150. Hedgehog rolled down the runway with 168 other B-7s following. Target time 4 o'clock p.m. If you want to see how Hartwell's flying destroyer performed against the Luftwaffe, please hit that like button. Every like helps us share these forgotten innovations. And please subscribe. Back to Hartwell. The formation reached the French coast at 3:30. Flak bursts dotted the sky over Guernsey. Radio chatter confirmed German fighters scrambling from airfields near Rennes. Hartwell's flight engineer reported fuel consumption tracking higher than briefed. The YB-40 burned more gas, climbing to altitude. Sandaire appeared through broken clouds at 4:02 p.m. The main formation dropped their bombs and turned for home. Empty B-7Fs climbed faster, accelerated quicker. Hartwell pushed the throttles forward. Hedgehog started falling behind. The standard B-7S pulled away at 160 miles per hour. Hartwell had the throttles at maximum continuous power. Hedgehog managed 148. His flight engineer climbed down from the top turret. Technical Sergeant Paul Morrison, 31 years old, 200 hours maintaining B-17S before the YB-40 conversion. He checked the engine instruments and shook his head. Number 3-cylinder head temperature climbing into the red. The extra weight and drag made the Cyclones work harder than they were designed for. Morrison throttled back number 3 engine before it overheated. Hedgehog slowed to 142 miles per hour. The main formation was 3 miles ahead now, 4M, Hartwell could see the other 6 YB-40s struggling at the rear of their assigned groups, every one of them falling behind. The radio operator called from the waist. Staff Sergeant Frank Delaney had spotted contrails at 4:00 high. German fighters climbing to intercept. Focke-Wulf 190s from Jagd-Geschwader 2 based advance. 6 aircraft, maybe 8. They were hunting stragglers. Hartwell keyed the intercom. All gunners tracked targets. The chin turret gunner reported good visibility. The ball turret rotated smoothly. Both waist gunners confirmed their twin mounts were loaded and tracking. The first Focke-Wulf dove at 5 o'clock, range 1,200 yards. The tail gunner opened fire at 800. Tracer rounds walked toward the diving fighter. The German pilot broke left and climbed away without firing. The second attack came from 11 o'clock high. 2 Focke-Wulfs in trail formation. The chin turret gunner tracked the lead aircraft and fired a 4 SE second-on burst. 50 caliber rounds stitched across the FW-190's engine cowling. Black smoke poured from the fighter. It rolled inverted and dove toward the channel. Delaney confirmed the kill from the waist position. The second Wolf broke off the attack. For 6 minutes, the YB-40's firepower worked exactly as designed. 3 more German fighters approached. 3 more attacks broke off early. The overlapping fields of fire from 16 guns created a wall of lead no pilot wanted to penetrate, but Hedgehog was still slowing down. The main formation was 6 miles ahead now. Then 7. Hartwell could barely see the bomber stream against the afternoon sky. Morrison reported fuel state. They'd burned 800 G more than brief during the climb and combat. At this power setting, they had 90 minutes to reach Alsenbury. The formation would be on the ground in 70. Another pair of Focke-Wulfs appeared at 2 o'clock. These pilots didn't break off. They'd figured out the YB-40 couldn't keep up, couldn't run. The German fighters circled at a distance, waiting for the bomber to fall farther behind, waiting for the right moment to attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. Hartwell pushed the throttles forward again. Number 3 engine temperature climbed back into the red. Morrison watched the gauge and said nothing. The escort bomber with 16 guns had become the target it was supposed to protect. The attack came at 4:43 p.m. 3 Focke-Wulfs from different vectors. High right, low left, dead ahead at 12 o'clock level. Hartwell couldn't evade. The YB-40 turned like a freight train with all that weight. He held course and altitude. His gunners opened fire simultaneously. The chin turret tracked the frontal attack. The top turret swung right. The ball turret rotated left. Both waist gunners fired through opposite windows. Spent brass cascaded into the fuselage. The aircraft shook from the combined recoil of 8 guns firing at once. The lead Focke-Wulf's canopy shattered. The fighter rolled right and fell away, trailing smoke. The high attacker broke off early. The low attacker pressed his run and fired a 2-con burst. 20mm cannon rounds punched through Hedgehog's right wing. 1 hydraulic line severed. The waist gunner reported fluid sprang across the window. Delaney called out damage. Right landing gear hydraulic system failed. They'd have to manually crank the gear down for landing if they made it back. Morrison checked the fuel again. 72 minutes to Allenbury at current power setting. The formation was 8 miles ahead and pulling away. They were alone over occupied France with German fighters circling. The radio crackled. Another YB-40 crew from the 305th Bomb Group. Captain Richard Hayes flying aircraft 42 to 5741. His gunship had also fallen behind. 2 YB-40s now separated from the formation. Both struggling to maintain airspeed. Both burning fuel faster than briefed. Hayes suggested they form up together. Combined defensive fire from 32 guns might keep the Germans at bay. Hartwell agreed. Hayes descended from 21,000 feet to match Hedgehog's altitude at 19,500. The Focke-Wulfs circled wider now, 4 visible, maybe 6. They weren't attacking 2 gunships flying in loose formation, but they weren't leaving either. At 5:07 p.m., Hartwell crossed the French coast outbound. The channel stretched gray and empty below. 53 miles to the English coast. 41 minutes flying time at their current ground speed. Number 3 engine was running hot. Morrison had pulled the power back twice already. They couldn't maintain altitude much longer. Hedgehog descended through 19,000 feet, 18,800. 18,600. Hayes radioed that his number 2 engine oil pressure was dropping. He throttled it back to prevent seizure. His YB-40 slowed to 138 miles per hour. Both aircraft were struggling. Both crews watching fuel gauges tick toward empty. Both hoping the German fighters wouldn't follow them over water. At 5:22 p.m., 2 Messerschmitt 109s appeared at 6 o'clock high. They'd follow the stragglers to the channel. The tail gunners called out the intercept. Range 400 yards and closing. The fighters dove through 18,000 feet. Their cannons opened fire at 800 yards. Hartwell couldn't climb, couldn't accelerate, couldn't turn hard enough to throw off their aim. The YB-40 had become a flying target with empty sky all around. The tail gunner fired first. Staff Sergeant Raymond Cack, 24 years old, former ski shooting champion from Cleveland. He'd never tracked targets moving this fast. The lead measures 109 close to 600 yards. Cack walked his tracers across empty sky. The German pilot jinked left, right, dove 20 degrees. His wingmen followed. Both fighters opened fire at 400 yards. Cannon shells tore through Hedgehog's tail section. One round exploded in the horizontal stabilizer. Another punched through the fuselage. 2 foot behind Cack's position. The aircraft shuddered. Hartwell felt the controls go mushy. Morrison climbed back to check damage. The elevator cables were intact, but the trim tab mechanism was jammed. Hartwell would have to fight the control yoke all the way to England. The meshes pulled up for another pass. Hayes's YB-40 opened fire with all dorsal guns. The combined firepower from both gunships filled the sky with tracers. The German fighters broke left and circled back to altitude. At 5:31 p.m., for Republic P-47 Thunderbolts appeared from the northeast. Long-range escort fighters returning from a sweep over Belgium. They'd heard the radio calls about stragglers under attack. The Thunderbolts dove at the meshes. The German pilots saw them coming and turned east toward France. The P-47s didn't pursue. They formed up on both YB-40s and waggled their wings. Escort to the English coast. Hartwell checked his fuel. 37 minutes remaining at current power setting. 29 miles to landfall. They'd make it barely, but the concept was broken. He could see it now. The YB-40 worked perfectly as a gun platform. 1650s could shred any fighter that got close. The chin turret alone had changed the equation for frontal attacks. The weight made it useless. After the standard B-7s dropped their bombs, they climbed faster and flew higher. The YB-40 still carried 11,000 rounds of ammunition. 4,000 extra pounds dragging them down, making them slower, making them targets instead of protectors. Hayes radioed at 547. His number 2 engine had seized. Oil pressure 0. He'd feathered the propeller. His YB-40 descended through 15,000 feet on 3 engines. Morrison calculated the numbers. Hayes wouldn't make Alconbury. Maybe not even England. His fuel consumption on 3 engines was too high. The English coast appeared at 5:53 p.m. Hayes aimed for the first airfield he could find. RAF Manston on the Kent Peninsula. He called the tower and declared an emergency. They cleared him for immediate landing. Hartwell watched Hayes's YB-40 drop away toward the emergency field. One gunship limping home on 3 engines, another damaged and barely controllable. Both aircraft would require major repairs before flying again. At 6:18 p.m., Hedgehog touched down at Allenbury. Hartwell cranked the landing gear down manually. The right main gear locked with 15 seconds to spare before touchdown. Ground crews counted 16 bullet holes in the fuselage, 1 severed hydraulic line, 1 jammed trim tab, 1 damaged horizontal stabilizer. Colonel Reed was waiting at the hard stand. He wanted Hartwell's assessment immediately. The first combat test of the YB-40 concept, the flying destroyer that was supposed to protect bomber formations all the way to Germany and back. Hartwell shut down the engines and climbed out. His flight suit was soaked with sweat. His hands still shook from fighting the controls for 90 minutes. He looked at Reed and said 3 words that would end the program. "It can't keep up." Reed ordered 7 more missions. Maybe the first test was an anomaly. Maybe different tactics would work. Maybe positioning the YB-40s differently in the formation would solve the speed problem. The second mission launched on June 15 against Lama. 4 YB-40s flew. All 4 fell behind after the bomb drop. The third mission on June 22 targeted the IG Farb and synthetic rubber plant at Hulls. 11 YB-40s dispatched. 1 aircraft lost to flak and fighters. The remaining 10 struggled home hours after the main formation landed. Engineers at Abbott's Ripton Depot tried modifications. They adjusted the waste gun feeds, changed ammunition loading procedures, moved weight forward to fix the center of gravity. Nothing worked. The fundamental problem remained. A B-7F carrying bombs weighed 65,000 pounds at takeoff. After dropping bombs, it weighed 48,000. The YB-40 weighed 68,000 at takeoff. After combat, it still weighed 64,000. 4,000 pounds of guns and ammunition that couldn't be dropped. On June 28, 6 YB-40s attacked Sandaire again. They claimed 1 German fighter destroyed. All 6 fell behind the formation on the return leg. 1 crew reported they'd been alone over France for 43 minutes. Alone meant vulnerable. The aircraft designed to protect bombers needed protection itself. The 8th Air Force compiled statistics after non-combat missions. 48 sorties flown, 5 confirmed German fighter kills, 2 probable, 1 YB-40 lost. Every single aircraft had fallen behind its formation after the bomb drop. Average separation distance 7 miles. Average time alone over enemy territory 38 minutes. Luftwaffe fighter chief Adolf Gand reviewed the intelligence reports. German pilots had figured out the YB-40s quickly. The heavily armed bombers looked different. Extra turret visible from any angle. No bomb bay doors. They flew in the most vulnerable positions. German pilots were told to ignore them during initial attacks and then hunt them after the main bomber stream escaped. On July 4, the 92nd Bombardment Group flew its final YB-40 mission. Target: the aircraft factories at Le Mans. 14 aircraft dispatched. 3 YB-40s. Every one of them fell behind after the bomb drop. None were lost, but none contributed meaningful escort fire to the formation. Colonel Reed submitted his final report on July 8. The YB-40 concept failed operational evaluation due to performance deficiencies. The Air Force ordered the remaining aircraft grounded pending further instruction. 12 conversions at Douglas Tulsa, 6 more at Vega Aircraft in Burbank, a total of 22 flying destroyers built. The surviving examples returned to the United States for training duty. Gunners learned turret operation and ammunition management on them through the end of 1944. By then, the original YB-40s were worn out. Hedgehog was scrapped at Kingman, Arizona in March 1946. It was a failure, but one that mattered. Because in solving one problem badly, the YB-40 proved where the real solution lay. That chin turret on the YB-40's nose, the one that shredded fighters on frontal attacks, became standard on every B-17G built after 1943. The lessons about defensive firepower, ammunition feeds, and turret synchronization shaped bomber design for the rest of the war. Sometimes, failure teaches faster than success. Hartwell never flew a YB-40 again. He returned to standard B-17s, completing his tour before rotating home in December 1943. He died in 1998 at age 81. Morrison, the flight engineer, opened a small machine shop in Kansas City after the war. He built custom motorcycles until he retired in 1979. The rest of Hedgehog's crew scattered across the country, anonymous veterans of an aircraft that tried to be something the skies didn't want. The YB-40 survives today only in photographs, maintenance logs, and a few pieces of salvaged metal in museums. At the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, one of the original chin turrets sits under glass, its steel scarred and blackened by cordite residue. A small plaque reads, Boeing YB-40, Escort Bomber Project, 1943. An aircraft too heavy to fly with the bombers it was meant to protect. Visitors walk past it every day, unaware that it once represented the cutting edge of desperation. The Air Force had tried to turn a fortress into a guardian angel, and discovered that angels, too, can fall behind. If you visit the field where RAF Alconbury once stood, the concrete has cracked, the hangars are gone, and grass covers what used to be runways. But if you look closely on a clear morning, when the mist hangs low, you might imagine the sound of 4 Wright cyclones starting up, the smell of oil and cordite, and the silhouette of a strange bomber lifting into the dawn, too heavy, too brave, and too late. That's the story of the YB-40 Flying Fortress Escort Bomber, a weapon built from fear, hope, and urgency. It couldn't keep up, but it left its mark on history. Every innovation has its ghosts.